Hey, welcome back to Barefoot Bible. I am the host of Barefoot Bible, David Wright. Our Judges series continues today with Who Were the Judges, which explains the lessons of Judges 2, and we'll look at verse 16 through 18, actually. Not going to quite make it to 19, but these 12 judges were more like the Wild West of America's past than a contrast to a modern black robe courtroom judge. Definitely more like the Wild West. Let's take a look at verse 16. Nevertheless, the Lord raised up judges who delivered the Israelites, out of the hand of those who plundered them. The Old Testament judges were not selected by people, they were called by God. Their leadership not only ensured justice, but it also inspired hope and strengthened resilience within their communities. Ingrid explains, quote, these judges had no courtroom, wore no robes, received no salary. These people were probably more like Matt Dillon or Wyatt Earp than a dignified Supreme Court justice. They resembled Western sheriffs, men with forceful personalities who led the people and enforced justice. In verse 16, delivered comes from the word yasha, meaning to free, to open. And this term can be translated to preserve or to rescue. And in this context, we see the Heavenly Father rescuing his children from those he used for their chastening. And during more than 400 years of the history of the book of Judges, the main role of the judges was that of deliverer. And we see the Jewish list shows you the top 6 judges, which they would call major judges, and then the bottom 6 they call minor judges, and it's basically just pertaining to how much writing there was about each of the judges. So let's continue on with now verse 17. Yet they would not listen to their judges, but they played the harlot with other gods and bowed down to them. They turned quickly from the way in which their fathers walked in obeying the commandments of the Lord. They did not do so. So amid God's miraculous deliverance, the Israelites repeatedly failed to learn from their past mistakes, a tendency many of us also struggled with. The judges' generation dedicated their love and loyalty not to the true God, but to false gods, which God considered a serious betrayal, describing it as playing the harlot with other gods. Moving on to verse 18. And when the Lord raised up judges for them, the Lord was with the judge and delivered them out of the hand of their enemies all the days of the judge. For the Lord was moved to pity by their groaning because of those who oppressed them and harassed them. So it gives us an interesting picture about how long the deliverance lasts. It lasted until that judge died. And that would be the end of the deliverance. At that point, everything would start again. And Davis explains the Jewish background behind the term groaning that we see in verse 18. He says it's a noun. The Hebrew word ne'uah It's used only 3 other times in the entire Old Testament, 2 of which are in Exodus chapter 2 and chapter 6. There, the groaning is that of Israel under Egyptian slavery, a groaning that God heard, and he remembers his covenant and he delivers them. Now, the very word in Judges 2:18 in our current verse should carry our minds back to Exodus. So when we read that Yahweh was sorry on account of their groaning, it is as if the text is saying, see, Yahweh is still the same in 1100 BC as it was 1400 BC. During the Judges period. His mercies never come to an end. Hundreds of years do not cool the warmth of his compassion. Now, the Israelites repeatedly succumbed to a destructive spiritual cycle, as we will see in our next volume of the Judges vlog. It's a harmful pattern that we'll examine most closely next week, which I call the ripple effect of sinful choices. And you see that in my commentary on Judges with that subtitle. The ripple effect of sinful choices. That will be from Judges 2, verses 19 and on to the end of chapter 2. So please, as you have tuned in this week for this important vlog, please join us again next week. It will lay the foundation, for a good bit of what we'll cover next time. Thank you for tuning in today. Tune in again next week for the ripple effect of sinful choices.